Tonight I thought I'd start on something quite different. It's too big a subject to finish tonight, so it's going to be this meeting and next month to get all of it. I wanted to talk about the gospel in the stars. Now, you all know that from time so early we can't trace the beginning of it, that all the ancient peoples knew the signs of the zodiac. And with the one exception of China, they gave to the principal signs of the zodiac the same names. The Chinese called these various signs the pig, the hen, the dog, and so forth, according to the Chinese mentality. But all the others gave these signs of the zodiac the same names, with a few exceptions on some of the minor constellations. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about astrology because I don't believe there's anything to it whatsoever. But a curious thing, that from the earliest times, even these pagan peoples knew of the different constellations by these names, and as a matter of fact, what this sets out in the stars is the same thing that is set out in much more detail in our Bible, and it does not in any way grow out of or support their paganism. Genesis, of course, is not the earliest book in the Bible. While it talks about the earliest things, of course, Moses wrote that somewhere, say, between 1450 and 1446 BC. The book of Job, we know, is still earlier, because with all of the philosophic discussion in Job about why he had his troubles, there's no mention in it of the law. And certainly Job's friends would have pointed out this law and that he must have broken to have gotten into his trouble. But Moses, in the book of Genesis, records the earliest prophecy in point of time when it was originally given in the Bible. It's Genesis 3, verse 15. God has summoned Adam, Eve, and Satan before him to give an accounting of their misdeeds. And in Genesis 3, verse 15, he says to Satan, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. And the same Hebrew word, zerah, meaning seed, or figuratively descendants, is used in both cases. So Satan was to have just as literal children as was Eve. And God goes on to say, I will put enmity between thy seed and her seed. Thou shalt bruise his heel, and he shall, some translations say bruise thy head, some say crush thy head. So you have there the first prophecy of the coming Redeemer, who is going to crush the power of Satan, but suffer terribly himself in doing it. Now, from then on, you've got a long gap, because that was approximately 4000 BC, and from then down to the time when Moses wrote, or even Job, which goes back probably 600 years earlier than Moses, you've got a long gap without prophecy. Now, you do have some prophetic material in the book of Enoch, about which we can't be too certain whether what we have today is the original or not. It's true that one of the books of the New Testament does mention that Enoch prophesied about the coming of God to take vengeance. But the book of Enoch has remained on the apocryphal list because the churches have not been sure whether they could accept it at face value as inspired or not. Now, in that long gap in there, from 4000 to the middle 1400s BC, what was to keep alive the prophecies that God had given. Now we know, of course, that a much more complete statement was given to Adam and Eve than is recorded in Genesis, because you remember that Abel knew enough to bring the blood sacrifice. And you remember the Apostle Paul says, by faith, Abel brought a better sacrifice than Cain. You can't have faith in something you've never heard about. So the details obviously were given. But how to keep them alive? Now we do know that the Adamic peoples living among the other non-Adamic races, discussing these things, some of the things they knew got out among the pagans and appeared in garbled and caricatured form in the pagan religions. Now all the pagan religions of the world are alike. They say that man must make sacrifices to appease an angry God. We have, of course, most details from the Greeks probably, but according to the general pagan theory as well set out by the Greeks, if you became a little bit too prosperous, the gods became envious that you had all this. So you had to offer sacrifices that cost so much, they really hurt you financially. And so the gods would decide that, well, if you'd been punished this much for it, why, maybe you could get off without anything more. The Christian religion alone has the opposite. It has God making the sacrifice to save man. Now, nobody took the old pagan idea and refined it into what is Christianity. It's obvious that the higher idea, in the hands of people of no spirituality, was garbled and distorted into the lower form. Ancient tradition says that Enoch and Seth were the ones who worked out the signs of the zodiac. And it may well be because, as I say, among all the pagan peoples of Western Europe and Asia and North Africa, the signs were